to say this is really, we're navigating a lot of uncertainty right now. And so I thought that this was the perfect time to really get into the honest, truthful, and vulnerable conversations with the most brilliant people I know and how they're navigating this time. The silver lining around all of this, right, is even though coronavirus is obviously something that is so destructive and so crazy for all of us, it's uniting us in a weird way because we're all, no matter where we are in the world, we're all going through the same thing. I'm from the States and I've been living in France for a long time. So being living in a foreign country, my life has always been so different from my friends. But now we are all living the same lives, right? We're all living that quarantine life, that love lockdown. So it's such a pleasure for me to be able to bring in some of my, not only my friends, but I'm fans of, I'm one of the biggest fans of my friends, and more importantly, these are people that I find who are making a real impact in the world, who have a real intention to bring joy and contribution and love on the planet. So it's my pleasure to welcome my good friend Maya Hatch, streaming in from Tokyo. And she is a singer. She is an actress. She's celebrating 10 years of life in Japan, in Tokyo this year. So it's also a really exciting time to connect because we met 10 years ago, not in Tokyo, but in New York City. So I guess my first question, Maya, I think that for the people who are watching you and watching your work and watching your growth, they're seeing all of your big victories, right? Because by the time you're ready to share, we're ready to share the stuff that's already been baked in. So really quickly, I just want to set us up really quick. Can you name maybe 3 of your biggest victories over the last 10 years? And then we'll kind of start from there and then work our way backwards.
Okay. Well, first of all, hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Ruby, for having me on your brand new show and for having me as your first guest. I feel so honored. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the same goes for me. That's exactly how I feel about you. You're like one of my favorite people in the world, and you're making a huge impact, and you inspire me always. So the feeling is mutual, and you know that, but thank you, Neats. Okay, so my victories, so I would say the first one being able to release my first album in Japan. That was 11 years ago, 2009, right after I graduated from the New School in New York. Which is New York is where Ruby and I met.
We're going to talk about that more later.
Yes. So being able to, being offered a deal from a record label in Japan was my kind of the start, which catapulted my career. And then the second one would be being offered a position on a children's TV show that's in Japan that's basically like Sesame Street. So it's called Ponkiki. Do I have a character that I can show from?
You look so cute. Your little blue dress that you wore on that show.
Yeah, the outfit was actually surprisingly cute. I can't find, well, whatever. There's some little characters over there, but whatever. The people who know. But there's a couple characters that are like Big Bird and the Cookie Monster that are kind of like the big mascots that we still see around in Japan. And so the show was really famous. It went on from like the 70s until just like last year. I think they ended the show. So being offered that position while I was still living in New York was a huge opportunity for me, and I took it right away and moved out here 10 years ago with that show as my incentive. And then I think the third victory would be, actually there's more victories, but I guess I don't know.
Of course, you're just winning all day, Maya.
But no. Well, can I put the record deal and the
yes, together.
Okay. Can I put the record deal and the TV show together, because that was
You can do whatever
the
you want on this.
came from
Absolutely.
the offer to record.
Okay.
So then I came out to Japan to do music professionally, full time, and then I would say the second victory would be being able to sing for the largest group of people that I've ever been able to sing for, which was at the Sapporo Dome for 50,000 people. And I got to sing a duet with this pop star named Exile Atsushi. So him and I got to share the stage during his encore. And it was the most amazing moment of my life, I think, just being able to sing for that many people. It has always been a dream of mine to reach as many people as possible. So that was a huge victory. And then most recently was getting to write my most recent single with Babyface. And that was an experience that it's still hard to believe that it actually happened. And but we can get into all of that.
Yeah, we're gonna get into all that. I want to set it up with the glamour, right? Before we work backwards and like show what happens behind the curtain, what actually took to get to those victories. So the grittiness of it all. So speaking of grit, this is a good opportunity segue into how we met in New York City. So obviously you had said that, your opportunity to go to Japan, to get a record deal, to get on the show happened while you're still in New York. Tell us what was happening in your life when that happened. That's also when we met and we connected, because New York, for the both of us, I think was, I think when people look at New York from the outside in, it seems very glitzy. It's very exciting, which it is. And I don't regret moving to New York or experiencing New York. But when you're actually living it, I mean, it's a whole other story. So I'd love for you to talk about, what was happening in your life right before, or maybe even, a couple of weeks before, that call to Japan came through.
So at the time, I think we have to backtrack a little bit, because so at the time I was working for a nonprofit organization that was helping underprivileged kids get into college. And it was kids living in the projects in the city, and mostly Latino and African-American kids. And it was a foundation called, actually, I don't want to, do I want to put them out there like that? I shouldn't. Yeah, I don't want to. Okay, thanks for stopping me there. But anyway, so I had gotten let go of, it wasn't a paid position, but I was volunteering, and it was part of my schoolwork at the new school, because at the time I was going to school getting a dual degree for vocal jazz performance, as well as education studies. And within the education studies program at Eugene Lang College, the liberal arts college of the new school, I was studying social justice education. And it was my first time really just I feel that when I was living in Seattle, where I'm from, I feel I was very sheltered. And even though I grew up in the South End of Seattle, my high school was predominantly white. And I didn't really learn about how our public education system is very Eurocentric. I didn't realize any of that. And so this social justice education really taught me to question the status quo, and to question all these things that I thought were just normal or whatever. And so once I started becoming really involved with these children and this program, the president of the organization was this white woman, and she was very threatened by me trying to challenge the kids, to think about these ideas of liberation, and which is what that's why I can't say the title, but the title was based off of a very predominant, like a very important social justice, this activist who we all know from his speech. So anyway, so it was like, what are we doing here? We're trying to get these kids to just graduate and go become doctors and become lawyers, and that's the idea of success, or are we trying to get them to really find out what makes them the most happy and feel liberated and free? So anyway,
revolutionary out here in these streets.
So no, but it was getting me so worked up because, as you said, the city from the outside seems like this glamorous place, and like the city, all the lights and blah blah blah. But once you're in it, you see how unequal it is, and
you see structural inequality play out on a daily basis. Even just if you're riding the train, right? Like you could be riding the whatever line from point A to point B, and all of a sudden the demographics just starts to shift, from point A to B.
So it was kind of my first time having all of that just like completely just like so transparent in my face, and I just couldn't take the racism and the inequality that I was witnessing, and so I got to a really, really low place in my life, and I was just like, I want to find peace. And I was fighting for peace for these kids, for the world, in my mind, and so it felt like that was taken away from me when I got fired, and so the person who actually called into our Zoom chat, Kumiko, she was the one who introduced me to Buddhism. And I had met her 1 year prior to being let off from this job. And the one conversation that we had was about how she was coming out of this Buddhist meeting, and I had always been very intrigued by Buddhism and the philosophies about it. And so when her and I had that one conversation, I never ever forgot about her. And she talked about your Buddhahood, which is another way of calling your highest self. And so I was like, oh my God, like I've always believed in this concept, but I never knew that it had a name. And so I never forgot that. And but for some reason, just life kept going, and I hadn't talked to her for about a year. But then once I got to this really low, place in my life, I remembered her instantly, and I was like, I need to contact Kumi, and I need to, get with this Buddhism. And so she met with me right away and just really started instilling these, philosophies into my heart, and it just made complete sense, and it just fueled my life force, and just made me like not just so joyful, but just like I felt like I was finally myself, and I felt like this is who I've always meant to be, and like I just felt unstoppable with just like this knowing that I had this infinite power within myself, and that's the same power that's within the universe, and it's one and the same, and just being able to know that, wow, like that's who I am. And so anyways, so that happened. And then fast forward, so even though I got let down from that organization, I began chanting.
But let me just stop you there for a minute, Maya, because when you told Kumi that you got let go from your job, what did Kumi tell you?
Well, so this was after. So this is how I started Buddhism, was being fired. So I got fired many times, right? So that was the first time getting fired, right, from this organization. And then that's what brought me to Buddhism, is this just sorrow, this great sorrow that I couldn't get rid of, was like, okay, I need something to stabilize my life. And
Yeah.
and then once I began practicing, I had graduated from the new school, and I was working like 4 part-time jobs. You know, as you know, rent is not cheap in New York. At the time it was for me, but it still wasn't enough. I mean, all the jobs I had was still, you know, I was living month to month, really struggling. And nothing that I was doing, even though I had gotten a degree in music, nothing I was doing was music related. So so I was really, really feeling like, even though I was working with kids, which is also one of my passions, I felt I wasn't fulfilling my full potential and my, you know, my purpose on the earth. So um so I one day I was working at this chiropractor's office as his receptionist, and he brought me into his office and, you know, said, I don't think this is meant for you. And I said, I agree. I'm sorry. Because
100%. You are correct.
I couldn't remember the terminology, the medical terminology, where to like, yeah, it was just a hot mess up in that office. So so I got let go, but that was paying you know, the majority of my rent. So so I was like, fuck, what do I do? And I was really tripping, and I reached out to Kumi, of course, because she was just always there for me to give me guidance when I needed it. And so yeah, exactly what you said. She said to me, I said, you know, I called her up and I was like, Kumi, I got fired. And I was like on the verge of tears, and she's like, oh, Maya, congratulations. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, this is what you've been waiting for. This is your chance to chant and, you know, decide and determine to become financially stable from singing and from music and what you love to do. And she said, just chant for 1 week, you know, every day, you know, from the bottom of your heart, and just watch what happens. And so I did it. I took her advice and I chanted. We chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, which is also the name of your highest self. So it's another of your Buddhahood. So we chant that. That's also the name of the life force within the universe. And by chanting that, we are able to bring out our highest selves and our full potential. Absolutely. So so I began chanting really, really earnestly, and sure enough, like literally, like, you know, to the what is it called?
To the T.
To the T. I was gonna say that. I was a little afraid if I was wrong, but yeah, to the T. I got a call out of the blue from that from Fuji TV in Japan, asking if I would be interested in being a singer on their TV show full time.
And so that was like a week, like you said, it was, what was a time lapse? Was it like a week after?
Yeah, it was like a week after getting fired. And then I began chanting, and this miracle just happened. And I said, okay, well, I guess I'm going to Japan. And so, yeah, I took off, and I really only planned to be here for a couple months. I mean, for a couple years at the most, but I ended up staying.
Celebrating 10 years. So yeah. I just want to back up and give a little bit of context. And I wanted Maya to explain that for a couple of reasons. One, that's how Maya and I connected also because of our social justice mindset, right? Like, I think that was kind of like one of the first clicks, because when you're in New York and you're in the industry, at that time, when I moved to New York, I was trying to pursue a full-time television hosting, and I was going out to all of these auditions and being in spaces where the environment wasn't necessarily matching with my values. And at that time, 10 years ago, being woke was like not a thing, right? Like it wasn't at all something that people widely accepted. In fact, like in the entertainment industry, especially, people were discouraging of you trying to talk about anything like that, because at that time, that was like the height of reality TV. right? So I think that number one, I gravitated towards you because you had that mindset. But number two, you also introduced me to, you and Kumi both introduced me to Buddhism because I was going through it in New York. And I just want to also contextualize, like, for those who are listening who are not Buddhists, like, we are not trying to, this is not necessarily a show about that. More so, I wanted to share like the magic that I think is available to all of us, whether you're religious or spiritual. It doesn't matter what your faith or belief is, but right now I think we lack, we're living in a world where externally it looks really grim, but there's access to joy, there's access to magic. And I think when we are able to reinterpret what's happening externally and alchemize that and turning that into something that we can learn from, that we can grow from, that we can conquer, right? I think we can all have the power to alchemize pain into power and into love. So I just wanted to bring that back because I just don't want people who are listening to be like, well, I'm not Buddhist, it's not for me. It's not about that. Like, I want to share that we all have access to a higher self, a higher right?
Yeah.
And if you're open to it, you can, we can't control what happens to us. We can't control this coronavirus, but what we can control is how we respond to it and how we can react to it, right? And so I think for you, Maya, what I love about your story is that, I knew you at that time, and I remember that it was really difficult. And then all of a sudden, due to you aligning yourself with your, your magic and your power, 1 week later, I was just so astounded when you told me, okay, I'm moving to Japan. That was so amazing that you could do that. And I remember still your friend at your going away party. That was like, our like recurring line for the last 10 years. It's like, oh my God, Maya, your dreams are coming true immediately. And that is true, but it's not actually as immediate, right? There's so many things that happen in the background, which is why I wanted to set it up that way. Like, how discouraged you felt before, but like in that moment, you chose to ground yourself in something else that's deeper, something else you can't see, and somehow it magnetized this ability to create opportunity for you. So
I mean, I think that's like the whole concept is like of Buddhism is taking challenges and turning them into great chances, to become better, to become happier, to become stronger, wiser. I think I just had gotten to that point where I just couldn't take the suffering that I had inflicted on my own self anymore. And so it was like, I want to, take control of my life and find happiness.
Yes. And make a different choice. Yeah. And I think one of the things that I love about one of the lines that I hear a lot in the Buddhism that you showed me is like turning poison into medicine, which I think is so powerful, especially in the time that we're in right now, right? Like, we all have the power to choose to turn this poison into medicine by just making a choice, being someone who chooses to heal, to contribute to collective healing. So Maya, I just want to ask you, I love that you have an intention when you sing. You always tell me that you have this, you're not singing just to sing. There's like a reason and a mission behind your voice. Can you share what that mission is?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question, because that is like the reason why I sing. And I feel that question kind of gets lost a lot. Because a lot of people just sing because they like to sing, or they sing because, they want to impress someone, or, the reason that I sing is because I want to make people happy, and I want my voice to actually touch people's hearts and make them feel accepted and make them feel special and make them remember their own unique power and beauty that they have.
I love that. P.S. I would never go karaoke singing with Maya again. Okay?
You really surprised me. When you
Because, well,
okay, so
I don't
Ruby
say.
came to Japan for my wedding and was one of my bridesmaids and hosted the entire reception. Did such a great job.
With
But
my co-star
what I did
Yuri.
not know was that she is also low-key a rap star beneath it all.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, that was so much fun when we did karaoke.
What I lack in voice, I make up for in swag. Okay, got a couple,
You had so much swag.
got a couple of
It was
bars in my back
unbearable.
pocket at all times. People don't know that. No, just a little secret.
No, everyone that knows you knows that. It's just oozing out.
Oh my goodness. Well, I really admire that intention that you have, because I think also a lot of times people get really nervous to share their gift, but I feel like when they are rooted in like an intention, like it's not about them, but shining the light on other people. Like, how do they want people to feel?
Yes. So I can name two examples of how exactly what you said played out for me. So when I first started performing live professionally in Japan, I was scared out of my mind, like just terrified to the point where I had developed a humongous pimple inside of my nostril because I was just like
so
freaking
gritty.
out.
This is the real deal, guys.
For real. It was horrible. I had to go to the doctor and get like this cream to put inside my nose.
Maya's getting so real today.
No, but yeah, so I was so scared to perform in front of people because I was so worried about what they would think about me. And would I be good enough? But then I realized through Buddhism and through all these, philosophies and concepts that that we are always we should be on the side to give, not to receive. So it doesn't matter what the audience thinks about me. It's about what can I give to them. Yeah. And when you're on the side to give and not receive, that's when you can find real freedom. And so that, and for instance, like the sun is just shining. It's not asking anyone to shine on it. So if we can try to be like the sun, try to be, be people who can illuminate others. Yeah. So then the second example. So once I was able to really kind of internalize that concept, it was like performing became just such a breeze, and not a breeze, but just like just so much fun, because I was no longer worried about what the audience is giving me, and I didn't care about what they thought. It was just like, I want to make them happy.
That's something that also we can employ in our daily lives, right? You don't have to be a singer or whatnot, right? Like in our daily lives, like I think that's what I think could give us all more confidence to share our gifts, when it's like we're not worried about like
what people think about. Yeah.
It's more about like, what can I give? Like, what value do I give to the world? And I think also that's something that I learned in terms of like how we proceed to pave our path, right? Because we're going to get into this more later, but it's not always encouraging. There's a lot of times where we fall flat on our face, where we hit rock bottom, and it sucks. But I think for me, what I'm realizing is like, how could the universe not want me to win if my dream is about making people happy, if my dream has the intention to heal people, right? And I think right now, this is why I wanted to create these conversations, because more importantly than ever, I think people who have and understand what their missions are and what their divine assignment is, it's more important than ever that we come into alignment with that, because we are on this earth to create a healing environment. So I think like I would love to ask you, like Maya, like when you're like, what are some of the biggest failures? I asked you about your biggest victories. Now, like, what are some of the biggest failures? And part two of that question is like, when you are in that kind of failure space, how do you come back up? What brings you back?
How do you back up?
How do you bring yourself back up? Like, how do you set yourself out when you face a setback? How do you get the courage to then bring yourself back up from there?
Okay. So
we're going in, Neats.
Yeah, we are going in. I'm trying to like think of like some concrete moments where I'm like, I failed, but like,
or maybe it's not just like that you failed, but where things don't look like they were moving at all, you know, where.
Yeah, well, there have been so many moments where I feel like I was so close to, you know, getting a different record deal or a different opportunity that seemed really, you know, appealing at the time. And I don't know exactly what it was, but I think it could have just been like my self-doubt, you know, that like prohibited me from really like catapulting into that new opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think another thing would just be like laziness, just, you know, in general, just uh letting myself just like get too comfortable and not really pushing myself to take bigger risks and work as hard as I know that I'm capable of in order to reach my truest dreams.
Yeah.
So I think it all just like comes back to like just me needing to be more disciplined and yeah, I think yeah, my biggest fail, I don't know if it would be like a thing like this is how I failed something, but I think yeah, just letting myself get too comfortable.
Consistency is hard to do as well, you know.
Yeah. Some people have it naturally, like this, just like, you know, undying drive to succeed or to constantly, you know, it's really admirable to me. Like no matter how many inspirational videos or whatnot I see, like, you know, we used to watch Will Smith talk about the law of attraction, or you just, you know, not having a plan B so that you can really focus on your plan A or whatever. But yeah, I'm just like, I don't know how some of these people can just, you know, go with zero sleep and just go. I mean, it's just not in me. Like I fucking love to sleep. I'm sorry. I love to, yeah. And even this quarantine right now, the situation that we're in, it's like, okay, you could choose to be like, you know, oh yes, this is so awesome. I have all this time and I can do this and I can do this and I can do this. Or you could choose to be like, I'm gonna Netflix and chill and I'm not gonna do shit. And like, I'm happy with that. I'm fine with that. You know, and there's no wrong way of quarantining, right? But I would like to really challenge myself to work harder. I think my laziness is my biggest weakness, I think.
Yeah, well, I think that's also important to share that. And in regards to quarantine, I think it's really important for people to just remain flexible with themselves, right? Like I know personally for me, like there are some days where I feel really high energy and really high and really productive, but not because I feel like I need to be, but just because I just have the inspiration to do so. Like creating the show was something that I was inspired to do because I knew it would be something that would actually be fun. But also being really flexible about like, okay, you know what? If I don't want to do something today, allowing myself that balance. And I would hope that we learn something from that like after this quarantine, that we can learn more balance in our lives, that it doesn't have to be all work. It has to be that here for ourselves.
Yeah. And I think that's something I want to get better at is like doing things in moderation and being more balanced. And I think that's something that I've always admired about you. Like whenever we're talking and we're getting our conversation wrapped up, you're always like, okay, well, Neets, I have to go running, or I have to go make this call, or I have to go set up this blah, blah, blah. So I feel you're, you know, even if you had a shitty day, and we talk about that as well, you know, we have conversations to encourage one another when we're feeling down, but you know, you don't always stay in your wallow in your sadness. Like, you know, you feel what you need to feel for that whole day or whatever, but then you get right back up and you're like, you know, on it again.
That's that
So,
tapping into that higher power comes in, you know, and that support
mhm.
system, right? Like I really appreciate that some of our support system is tuned in right now on the YouTubes. You're gonna have to
Oh,
take we'll have to take a pause.
hi.
Help me shout out all of our
Yes,
wonderful people.
our sisters, G-Real Beats. That's George, by the way.
We got
Um,
Yuri here, we got Hope here.
Priyanka, hi. Hope,
Yes.
hi.
We have Kumi on the right channel. We love you, Kumi.
Oh,
Um, and then we have Mina. But
me.
well, okay, a couple of more things. I want to get some tangible questions in for people who are independent artists like yourselves. Really quickly, like, well, this might be a two-part question. You were with a record label when you first arrived in Japan, and now you're more independent now. So, what are the pros and cons of each path?
Mhm.
And what is the reality of like being an independent artist? Because when by the time we see what's going on with you, like it's all a done deal, right? Like the show has been set up, the track has been set up already, I mean, you could share whatever you want to share, whatever you're comfortable sharing, but like what goes behind all of the shiny things that you get to post up?
Mm. Well, so I was with this record label for about 3-4 years, and I released 2 albums with them. And at the time I was like, oh, they're not doing enough for me, oh, they're not promoting me enough, this and that. And then now, so the reason I left was because the vision that I had for myself, the artistic vision that I had for myself and what the label had for me was just clashing. They wanted to keep me in this very straight ahead jazz field, where I would, you know, be singing just like fly me to the moon, which is fine. And I love that style as well. But I really wanted to, you know, just go into more genres that appealed to a wider crowd. So pop, jazz, R&B, soul, hip hop, whatever. So I decided to resign, and then I just started doing everything independently. And while there is much more freedom for me to do what I want artistically, you know, suddenly the magazine features and the interview, the radio interviews and all of those things vanished. And so it was kind of starting all over again. But no, actually wasn't starting all over again, because they had already set me up with these 2 records, these 2 albums. And you know, they're behind me, there's like some jazz magazines that I'm in. So they had already, you know, put my name out there, and at the time I didn't realize how much they had done for me. But now, you know, looking back on it, I'm like, wow, they really had set me up for a great career, even if I had left them. So yeah, I am, I guess that's another failure, is failing to release my own CD after I left that label. It's been very embarrassingly, it's been 8 years. 2012 was my second album, which is the most recent album that I have. And it's been 8 years. I tried various different genres, various different, you know, things, and nothing worked really. So I just, you know, I'm collaborating with a lot of different people and featured on various projects and whatnot for other people's work. But in terms of my own work, I haven't released, you know, anything since then. Just a single and a little bit of music with my husband, who raps. Shout out to MC Buddha. Yeah. So anyways, I went off topic. Sorry. You
No, no,
were
no. I was
saying,
just asking you, like, what is
ah,
the reality behind, like the hustle for getting a show? Because by the time it gets to us, it's like, oh, Maya
mhm,
has this show coming up, or Maya has a single out. But like you said,
mhm,
right? Like when you were with the label, there was so much work that you didn't realize was being put in, because those
yeah,
magazine interviews don't just happen out of nowhere. Even
right.
booking a show doesn't just happen,
Hmm.
like, you know,
Hmm.
out of thin air. So
Right.
what is the process behind that?
Yeah. So they really, they really had set me up so that my name was somewhat known in the jazz field. So even after I left, people still were like, "Oh, I know you," or "I know your name. I've heard your name. I've heard your music." Um, so I was able to set up my own shows with, several different venues around Japan. And then I think just collaborating with so many different types of musicians in various genres and whatnot allowed me to, continue spreading my music around and getting heard, and then getting the opportunity to perform in a lot of places.
Right.
Um, but I mean, the scheduling, it is a little difficult, but it's not that hard um, to set up shows. It's kind of like the constant communication that you have to have with musicians and the venue, and or the if it's a festival, you got to talk about what you got to be your own middleman. So you have to go back and forth with people and try to set up
And
you know
manage logistics.
yeah, manage the logistics and set up something that is good for everybody. You have to set up a set list that the audience is going to like, and that the clients or the whoever's hiring you to perform is going to like. You have to make sure that your musicians feel happy with their pay, feel happy with the material that they're performing. You have to make sure that everybody's prepared, so you have to set up rehearsals. And then the thing that I don't like so much is having to negotiate and talk about money, because as an artist, like, I don't want to have to do that. But I've actually found that for me, when I was with a management, just the percentage that they would take, in the end, it just didn't seem worth it to have them, just take away a percentage when I was doing most of the work to get that get those opportunities anyways. So
And what is it like for you? Because you've been now working and living and working in Japan for 10 years. As a Japanese American, like, can you make a little bit of comparison as to like that journey, working in Japan versus in the States? Like, if there's somebody out there who's interested in working abroad, particularly in Tokyo, like, what are the pros and cons of being able to be an artist as a Japanese American, where you're at?
well, I think the pros and cons. Well, so for me, I had like this experience of living in Japan as a child when I was in middle school. So I lived here with my family for about 4 years when I was younger. And because I had that experience of living in Japan, and being able to pick up the language through living here, it wasn't like a complete foreign place to me by
Yeah,
the time I
I'm
got
so glad you're bringing that up, because I think that's important to like
here.
help people understand that this journey to
Yeah.
Japan happened or began seated a long time
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah, yeah. If I hadn't had that childhood experience of living here, honestly, I don't think that I would have moved here again. But I really wanted to experience what life would be like living as an adult in Japan, because I had lived here as a kid, but I still felt like I was, even though I'm half Japanese, I felt like I was just American, like Japanese American. But I wanted the experience of being able to say, and feel just as Japanese as I am American.
Mm.
And I don't think I'm quite there yet, but I'm definitely, you know, a lot more Japanese than I used to be, I think, culturally. So the pros and cons, though, as an American, I think people tend to find Japan to be like pretty, you know, just a culture of like assimilation, and like you really you can't succeed here unless you follow the rules. And yeah, it's very difficult. I think now finally there are some artists who are coming out, you know, and gaining popularity through being unique and being something different, and it's finally cool to be different. But back in the day when I was living here in middle school, the only way that I could make friends or get by was, you know, I had to learn the language. I had to, you know, try to make my writing the same as everyone else. And you know, I don't know. It's just,
Yeah, it's so interesting.
it still feels that way.
Yeah, we see a lot of subculture that comes out of Japan. So I actually was surprised to hear that that was the reality of it, because we just see like in the West, at least when I see pictures of Japan, I see mostly like the subculture, which is like super, you know, out there. And so I thought that actually the opposite, that Japan was embracing of, you know, differences and all of that. But from what I'm hearing, I guess like when there is a very strong, a societal pressure to conform, the subculture ends up becoming a lot more stronger in opposition. Is that correct?
Yeah. I think it is, it's finally becoming, you know, more open and open-minded, a more open-minded society, but it's still pretty difficult. And I think that a lot of Americans can find that to be really like isolating and cold, and yeah, and it affects artists creatively too, because it's hard to find inspiration when everything is the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now for, you know, this is going to be kind of my last question, or second to last question, as because we're going to wrap up soon, but we also have a treat. So if you're still on, Maya's going to do a little special performance. So stay tuned. I got like 2 last questions for her before we wrap. But the first question is, or for those who do want to become an independent artist, what are the things that they absolutely have to have? Both kind of like maybe in terms of professional and personal development, to be able to continue paving a path for themselves. What makes, what kind of things do you need to be successful?
To be successful as an independent artist?
Yeah. And also like maybe sharing your dreams too, because I don't know if you want to be an independent artist forever, right? Like I think that you're doing this for now, but maybe you're wanting something else because of course you want to keep growing. So kind of speaking to that.
Well, I guess I would say really for us to really just do what feels the most natural to us and what gives us the most excitement, instead of worrying about, will someone like this, will people like this, really just do, even if it sounds crazy, even if it, you know, whatever, just I really would encourage everyone to just really try to find your own voice and your own style, and to hone it and hone in on it. Yeah, and I think this is something that we also talked about earlier, but just like when your purpose is for a greater good and not just your own success, when you really care about enriching other people's lives and, you know, contributing to other people's happiness, you I think you're given, the universe just gives us so much more power and so much more life force to be able to, to be able to share the gifts that we're given.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have another, sorry, I'm cheating because this is another kind of side question. But I think as me and you are both creatives, right? And I think that what we have in common is we're having to kind of have to play into the numbers game sometimes and feeling tempted to play into the numbers game. How do you approach that, right? Because, in the space that we're in, sometimes people who have a larger social media following, for example, can get in the door before someone like yourself who has like honed a craft. What are your thoughts on that? And how do you approach that? Because I think so many times in this world of social media and the comparisons that some people are tempted to make, how do you navigate this quality versus quantity concept?
Yeah, it's definitely a mind fuck. Sorry to curse so much show, but like,
Yeah.
It's so difficult not to care about the numbers and not to like, put like a price level on yourself, accordingly. But I think it's just, yeah, I just try not to care so much about the numbers. But yeah, it's something that I think everybody subconsciously cares about, even if we try not to.
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah, but I mean, it's funny. I was somewhere backstage, and a friend of mine was like trying to like introduce me to these PR people who were there to see a different artist, but because they didn't know me, I didn't have that following that they respected or whatnot. It was, just push me to the side and like, who are you? So, we get that all the time. And it's a real disease that we are plagued with, I think, as humans. And it's just an illusion. It's really an illusion. I mean, all of us are so incredibly beautiful and wonderful and unique in our own ways. And we have the same worth and value. And I think we all should just try to focus on that instead of the numbers.
Earlier, how are we giving to people? How are we creating that intention to give and shine and illuminate others, right? I'm sure the sun is not counting how many followers it has, which is a lot. The sun is just, the biggest star, right? So with that, I'm going to end our interview and invite you to share your gift and and bless us with your light and that joyful voice of yours. So thank you so much for being part of the show.
Thank you so much, Needs. I feel like we could talk for like 3 hours and not not run out of things to talk about.
We do talk often, so that's good. We break it up.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on your show and asking me all these amazing questions. It really got me thinking and reflecting, like, I need to get off my ass.
Well, and so many people are missing out, right? Like, that's what I like, you got to remember, like, there are a lot of people who are missing out from your gifts if you don't share them.
But yeah, I think like that failure thing is so real. Like, I think our biggest failure is like when we don't try something because we're worried about failing. Which absolutely. I think I've done that so much. Just not pick up the guitar because what if I'm just not good enough? Like, I'm too old to learn that right now, so I shouldn't do, and just all these, preconceived notions that we have that we just block.
Yeah, I almost didn't start this series, because I was so afraid that it was gonna like be this or that. But then I saw this quote today that came from actually Marie Forleo, this woman that I follow, and it was like, start small and dream big, but also messy action is better than no action at all. So I love that you were willing to experiment with me. I love that Kumi came on our call accidentally. I love
just
that.
as you said, just as you expected, though.
Serendipitous magic. I love it. It's supposed to be, I think it doesn't have to be polished all the time. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be pure and authentic and given with love. So with that, I'm going to pass the microphone over to you, girlfriend.
All
and
right.
And thanking the viewers. If you're on with us right now, you made it till the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
We are so honored that you spent your time with us today. And for those who are on the replay and are still here till the end, man, so grateful for you.
Man,
but
I know.
Also,
thank you guys for tuning in.
Here's a little treat though to end our conversation.
So I haven't spoken a lick of Japanese this whole time. So for all my Japanese fans, I feel bad. So
you can end. I want you to end this entire segment in Japanese, Maya.
Okay. 皆さん聞いてくれた皆さんありがとうございました。親友のルビーと一緒に、いろんな、なんだろう、もう正直な話もしながらすごく楽しかったです。いつもありがとうございます。そして最後にじゃあ一曲お届けしたいと思います。オリジナル曲で、Together. Okay, so the one and only song that I will be performing here. This is an original song called Together. And I actually wrote this shortly after I moved to Japan. And I was dealing with like a little bit of homesickness and feeling like why are people not acknowledging one another's existence, because Japan is like so confined. I noticed that people just like kind of ignore each other just to kind of get through the day. People bump into each other because there's not a lot of space, but people don't take offense to it. They don't take it personally. It's just a thing that happens because everyone is just trying to, go about their day, whatnot. But
Shibuya crossing.
Yeah, but it felt really just unnatural to me that, like, coming from the States where, strangers talk to each other all the time. How was your day? Your coffee looks delicious, whatever, nice shirt. So not even being able to like ask for directions just felt really cold to me. And I just really was longing for human connection. And so it kind of reminds me of the time that we're in right now. And it's a time where we all, through this shared pain, we're coming together and we're experiencing something like as all people throughout the whole world, we're experiencing the same thing. And I think that staying home is one way of bringing peace about the world and, caring about one another. So this song is kind of about how can we really cherish one another. And one way is by really just cherishing the person that's right in front of you. And right now we don't have anyone right in front of us. Well, we have family if we have family, but we can cherish one another by staying home. And then when we're done with all of this, I hope that we can all not be afraid of human touch and human connection when we do get back out there in the real world. So this is, sorry for the long explanation, but so this is Together, and I hope you guys like it. My friend Marcelo Kimura, guitarist and vocalist living in Japan, played the playback for me on guitar. So I'm gonna play that while I sing. I'm gonna go from the start again. Can you guys hear it? often wonder why we keep passing each other by, but we don't stop to say hi. We don't even look each other in the eye, cause that's how we're socialized. And it feels so cold to ignore and be ignored. It's so against everything I fall, cause I know in my heart we're capable of more. It's a monkey though, 난리도 때히도 무시시다리 수르노 고백 같긴 날씨 매워서 날씨 이시기 살에 나고 불러와 사미시시 사무쓰기를요 뭐또 하도 이시기시 almost we got it out there 다짐이 still you call. So starting with you and me, we can be making all humanity just one big happy family together. Oh, 아무도 왔다시 민나인 집어오는지だからちのいお family にしよう一緒にDon't be fooled by what you see on the outside. You and me seem like separate entities with different colored skin. We belong to different countries, but we all have a beating heart. So we really aren't that far apart. We are one. We breathe the same air under the same sun. So starting with you and me, we can be making all humanity just one big happy family together. Oh, 아무도 왔다시 민나인 집어오는지 다 같이 이 family 니 시여 이쇼니. Why should I have to pretend like you don't exist? It's talking to you something that I really should resist. It could have been a special encounter I might have missed, cause we are all connected to life's greater purpose. So starting with you and me, we can be making all humanity just one big happy family together. Oh, 아무도 왔다시 민나인 집어오는지 다 같이 이 family 니 시여 이쇼니. Starting with you and me, we can be making all humanity just one big happy family together. Oh, 아무도 왔다시 민나인 집어오는지 다 같이 이 family 니 시여 이쇼니. Together. How do you say together in French? Huh?
Ensemble. Nous sommes ensemble.
Awesome.
Ouais. Exactement.
Awesome. Awesome. Like awesome?
Kind of like ensemble.
We can be making all humanity just one big happy family. Awesome.
Ensemble.
Ouais,
voilà.
Sorry.
Non, c'est pas grave.
Yeah, thank you.
C'est difficile, Maya. Maya's mother speaks fluent French.
What's that?
So I was shouting at your mom who speaks fluent French.
Oh, my mom is watching?
No, I don't know, but we never know. She's gonna watch the replay.
She will.
I hope.
You don't need the mic anymore, huh? Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you so much for blessing
Thank you
us.
so much, Ruby. Needs.
I love you and I appreciate you. And for those who are watching, follow Maya. You can find her at Maya Hatch on Instagram and I believe all social media platforms. Maya, maybe you could share a little bit more about where we can find you, your website, or if you have anything else upcoming.
Yeah, you can find me. I got my fan club over there in the kitchen. You can find me on all socials at Maya Hatch. My website is mayahatch.com. Yeah, I think this quarantine is a really great opportunity for me to work on new music that I've been meaning to work on. So thank you for inspiring me to get to work. And yeah, so stay
Yes.
tuned, everybody, for that new music.
Yes, and thank
I
you again,
promise it's
everyone,
coming.
for joining us. And I hope to see you at the next episode of Grit and Glamour. The next episode is going to be releasing in the next few days, but also stay tuned for this replay. So we'll see you again next time. And remember, it's not all glamour, baby, but we're still going to keep going.
Thanks, Ruby.
Bye.
Love you.
Love you.